Hi, my name is Brian Venton with another My Town Media opinion piece that I've called An Incriminating Waiver. In recent weeks, the actions of Townsville Councillors have raised a profound legal and ethical question. Did their collective pressure on the Mayor cross the line from politics into criminal conduct? On the 15th of September, at a special meeting of Council, councillors publicly read a waiver document, acknowledging that they had a declarable conflict of interest by virtue of a no-confidence motion they had previously threatened against the Mayor. Now, the waiver statement in part read as follows. I made a public statement calling on the Mayor to resign and subsequently moved a motion of no confidence in the Mayor. They went on to say, in anticipation of at least a majority of councillors making the same declaration as my own, I have sought and obtained the Minister's approval in accordance with Section 150EV of the Act to participate in all the items of today's agenda despite my declarable conflict of interest that I've just described. Now, I suspect that many people, including the councillors themselves, have no real understanding how critical this admission is, because it reveals two things. One, they acted jointly in concert together, not just as individuals. And two, they understood that their actions actually created a conflict of interest. Now, the Queensland Crime and Corruption Act in Section 15 and other sections is pretty specific on how these actions should be treated. It says, any behaviour that adversely or could adversely affect another public officer or could cause a detriment to another person and who conspires to engage in conduct could, if proved, be a criminal offence or a disciplinary breach. Importantly, detriment here doesn't only just mean physical harm, it could include professional, reputational and political harm. Then in Section 131 of the Crimes Act, under the heading Conspiracy to Bring False Accusation, it indicates that when a person or persons act together, irrespective of whether guilt is ever proved, that collusion itself may constitute a criminal act. The question then is this. Was the councillors' threat of a no-confidence motion back in May 2024, of which they followed up just a week or so later in June and voted on, was it an intentional act of collusion to try and force the Mayor's resignation? Was the action an act of planned political manoeuvring? And were their actions in fact an unlawful act that caused detriment to a public officer? Now, some might say all of the above. But why does it matter? Well, listen to this. It's important. Under the Local Government Act of 2009, councillors have no power to sack a mayor. A no-confidence motion is purely symbolic. It may be politically motivated, but it carries absolutely no weight in law and has no legal force. The only authority that can lawfully suspend or remove a mayor from office is the Minister for Local Government. Now, this means the councillor's threat was never about lawful process. It was about creating detriment, reputational damage, public humiliation, and political isolation. By definition, that is exactly the kind of conduct the Crimes Act was written to prevent. The problem for the councillors by reading the waiver on the 15th, where they acknowledged a declared conflict, the councillors effectively admitted that their actions were not impartial, but collectively and politically were motivated and in the process were unlawful. In my view, it was a public acknowledgement of fault by default. In the language of criminal law, as I understand it, all this amounts to evidence of intent. This, though, is not just about Townsville. It's a test of broader accountability for Queensland. It is a justice issue. It's about what is perceived to be right or wrong. If Townsville councillors, and by the way, others, and there were many who may have been involved in this, can band together to pressure a sitting mayor out of office through threats and collusion, then what protection does any public officer in Queensland truly have from political retaliation? Queensland law gives us the answer. The law exists to stop public officers from being bullied out of their roles. The question now is whether those laws will be applied to Townsville. Will Townsville councillors be held to account? At the moment, they feel pretty untouchable and quietly maybe gloating over the imminent dismissal of the mayor, imagining that they have finally pulled off their political heist. However, what they fail to realise is that in their action of the 15th to collectively sign off on the waiver, they may have publicly and finally incriminated themselves in an act of corruption, and serious penalties could apply. Now, I hope the regulators see these actions for what they appear to be and start holding people to account. Democracy demands it. Now, these comments are an expression of my own honest opinions and thoughts and may not necessarily reflect the opinions of others. They're proffered without prejudice. Thanks for watching, and remember, the things that appear are not always as they seem. Bye.